Good afternoon, all. How are we doing today? Hi, Maha. How are you? Hi, Jai.
Hi,
How are you doing?
all good.
Good. Now ready? Just
The
waiting.
mock papers, the mock papers are very difficult to answer.
Right. I think you'll find this coming up quite often, where you think, now what have I studied and what are they asking? It's completely two different things, right?
Yeah,
So, and especially I know that you're coming through the normal process. You've not got exemptions and things like that, which is very good because you got solid foundation. Because what you're trying to do is to say, how can I apply this, right? And you
yeah.
can't see opportunities. That's what you're facing. Yes.
Plus, the old knowledge from F3 and P3, it's kind of gone. Uh,
You did that very recently.
yeah, I finished in June, and after June, I was enjoying for a month. I didn't want to study.
Right. So the idea is you should not do that. You should just straight away go on doing exams, right?
Yeah, but the case study didn't come out till a month, and I was like,
Exactly.
what?
Yeah.
I should study again, the same thing I just passed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, say for example, when it comes to, if they're talking about any investments, acquisitions, and things like that, where they themselves are trying to, people are trying to acquire them, propositions as well. You have to evaluate investments. I think your F3, the fundamentals will stand good there. You can bring in that knowledge. And the other thing here is they're not going to ask you a straightforward question. This is the other problem. Yeah. They will just say
Okay.
advice. So you're thinking like an OT exam. They've asked you a definite question. The answers are also there, so it's very easy for you. In the sense, there is a box that you're restricted to, and you know where you have to move around.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's all open, and they're seeking your advice. So you really are not sure in what sense should I answer this question.
Yes, it's true. And which models or how many models to use in one answer? Is it too much? That's also a question.
So I think for that, one of the things that you look at the exam writing techniques, and then see, one principle is 20 words per minute, right? That's one. So as soon as they give you 60 minutes, you know how many words you need to type, right? That's one principle. The second one is you need to understand what are the questions that they're asking there. So in one question there might be 3 questions. You need to actually put those questions, the requirements down separately, highlight it, and so that you will not miss these, right?
Yes.
And for those questions that's been asked, the sub questions, you need to look at, well, we've got 4 competencies. How can I apply them? And what theoretical models are there for me to apply as well, right? So
Yes.
it is quite involved, but if you go through this particular structure, you're able to nail it down. And this is the reason why we say stick to that answer plan, because without the answer plan you're all over the shop, right? You'll not be able to structure.
Yeah, but in the first 10 minutes, it's quite difficult to get all the points.
Yeah,
For an answer plan.
what we're saying is, in the first 10 minutes, what you need to do is answer those. How many questions are they asking? Just bullet points. These are the questions. These are the 4 competencies. What are the main models that I can use? This is all what you're doing in your first 10 minutes, looking at a very high level helicopter view. How should I go about this? Once that is done, then you go into your main answer and start answering. And another thing that you need to remember is the timing. So please do give sufficient time for each sub question. You need to move to the next one and the next one immediately. Let's say you have only 40 minutes and there is 4 sections. So every area, you have 4 sections. So then within 10 minutes you need to move to the next section and to the next section, right? Because if you stay in one topic too long, you're going to miss your gaining marks on the others.
Yeah.
So that's one of the key things, because this whole thing revolves around how you structure your answers and then your execution, right? Knowledge is required, but knowledge in itself is not sufficient to pass the exam.
Yeah, and plus getting the right ideas, and the ideas are very few at that particular moment.
Yeah, but if you go to see, right, in a company, whatever the situation is, what can companies do, really? Whatever product or service they're selling. If you look at it in that sense, the companies, and that's the reason why we have these models, and this can be applied. If I'm looking at Ansoff, and I can apply that to all companies, right? Any company, doesn't matter, right? So, but that gives you a structure. If I look at my SAFS model, that again can be applied across any company for any investment purposes. So when I look at companies, again, companies have suppliers, right? And companies have customers. So suppliers, what are the issues that you can come across? The supply chain, there's issues with the suppliers, the way they handle things, there are ethical issues, right? So how do you manage that? Irrespective what they do, the company, you will find this. Right? And then you will find ethical issues in the way they recruit or in the way they handle the media. There's some disaster, they've not handled it well, right? Again, these can happen in any company in the world. So if you look at the scenarios that's there, if it's strategy management or any other case study, we will see it's all repeated, because at the end of the day, company is alive and there are only certain activities a company can do. So in that sense, if you look at it, you will see kind of a pattern. So what can the examiner throw? You can throw things, investments, it can throw things around dividends, it can throw things around stakeholders, right? Suppliers.
Yes.
So then if you break it down in your head, these are the things that can happen. Well, you're I think in a stronger position to answer. Any other questions like that from anyone else? Swati, any input from you?
Hi, yeah, I just joined, so I'm not quite sure what's going on.
Right, okay, so we were discussing, Jai was just talking to me and saying, how he finds it quite difficult he's doing the exam for the first time, he finds it very difficult to bring the answers together, because this is a very common thing where you say, how many models to use, how am I going to structure my answer? And that's what we were just talking, and we were looking at in companies, these so the activities, they are the same whatever the company it is. So how certain models can be used across any company, whether it's Mandela's matrix, Ansoff, SAFS model, the dividend theory model, all these things can be used. So any views from your experience, Swati?
Yeah, actually, I would want to talk about that because it is, I have noticed that for every question, we can definitely use a lot of models, but it is always best to use just a few of them, like a limited ones, and
Yes.
then we can explain that in details. Like, we can integrate that. So for each model, for example, we cannot use all the aspects. So we need to use only the aspects that are particular for that case,
Correct.
as well as the question. And moreover, we should use only 2 to 3 models at max, because if we use a lot of them, then we are not able to justify all of them, properly.
Right. Yes.
So what I would say is, even if we use Mendelow's matrix, we'll be able to notice that we have an issue either with suppliers, or we have, one person leaving, which is a key player.
Yes.
So we can use only a few aspects of the models, and we need to use just a few models.
Yep. Yep. And yeah, go ahead.
I have a question.
Yes.
Like, suppose there is one section, and that section has 3 parts, three sub questions.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a minimum or a maximum for the first question is whether to answer in the bullet points or answer in the paragraphs, and the second question is that if we are answering in the bullet points, how many minimum points we need to give for each sub question.
Right. I think when it comes to answering, you write in short paragraphs, right? And this way, you're making it easy for the examiner to see your points. Yes. And if there are 4 questions in the one question, like I said, you need to answer all 4 parts and divide the time equally. Right. And yeah, go ahead.
In all these parts, do we need to write minimum number of small paragraphs / points, or is it just the matter of time and number of ideas that we can generate?
I think the time will restrict you, right? The time, but I would say now, if there are 3 points, for example, what Swati mentioned, right, is about Mandela's matrix. Now you can bring in that model. If you spend a lot of time talking about the 4 quadrants, that means you're losing time, because you lost time talking about some other points, right? So in this case, you will use the quadrant that is most important in this context, explain about that, and relate it to this exam question. Right. So it is very difficult to say about the number of points it depends on each situation. Anyone else who wants to add some comments there?
Yeah, this is Malingam here.
Yes.
If the question is like, what are all the advantages and disadvantages, it is better to jot down with the bullet points or with the numbers. Okay, so if a question is like, what factors should we consider, just evaluate, etc., then we just need to present them in the paragraphs. As you have said that we shouldn't be, if it is in Mandela's matrix,
yes,
we shouldn't be getting ourselves engaged with explaining all the four variants described in the Mandela's matrix. Whatever is relevant, we just need to pick this up.
Correct.
Pick this up, and then while presenting these answers, we shouldn't be thrusting all the theories, whatever that we know.
Exactly, because one of the things that is a very good point, because one of the things that the examiner says very clearly is don't give a kitchen sink answer, meaning don't put everything that you know into this particular answer, because that shows you really cannot focus and you're not sure what will work. As a result, you're putting everything, so that's something that you should avoid.
Yeah, and then while making synopsis, before you begin your answer, you need to structurize your answer. So how do you structurize your answer? You cannot build this on your mind. You cannot build this model and then you cannot keep writing it. It is better to type it out the structure that how you are going to present it. But at the same time, you shouldn't be spending no more than 10 minutes. 10 minutes itself is too long
It's
for us
too
to.
much, yeah.
It's too much. So 5 to 6 minutes would be the maximum time to structurize this, and then we should concentrate more on the presentation. Last time I did this mistake. I was just concentrating on the structurization. It took around 15-20 minutes. When I just started jotting down this answer, I was just running out of time. I couldn't even write whatever that I have structured there in the beginning of the paragraph. So I was
what
not
you
getting
have
this
done
marks.
in this case, thanks Maha for giving that insight and explaining what you did wrong as well, because it's important for the team to understand that, where you have spent a lot of time in trying to structure, so doing the answer plan, and this is where we should be very careful in our answer plan and restrict ourselves, right? Right. So today I'm going to touch upon the industry that we are in, and we will have a conversation as well, because I want to find out what kind of research that you guys have done, right? And also I want to then get into some questions, right? So I'm going to share my screen with you first. So we are looking at the traditional versus renewable energy, right? That's the first thing. The reason why I thought of looking at this is because if you look at the renewable energy, it has been there forever, right? Why haven't we used it before? Why have we just looked into this just the last 20 years or so? What has kept us from going forward with this? There are many factors, right? So one of the things, if you look at it, is the appetite for it and the cost that was associated with as against our traditional energy, right? It's fossil fuels. Whereas oil was very cheap compared to the renewable energy. So the production process itself was very expensive, and it's a new technology. From a technology perspective as well, it's extremely new, right? And it needed a lot of technology and advancements for it to bring it to a very good costing, as well as how to harness the energy, right? So this really was a very big issue in the renewable energy space. And if you look at the oil and gas, particularly the oil, right, it's been there for a long time. The industry has been there for a long time. If you compare it with the renewable energies, it's very, very new. Yeah. And then we look at the politics around this, which is extremely interesting, because we know that the electric car has been there. It was there in the 1970s, but it never took off because there was a lot of lobbying by the car manufacturers as well as the oil companies to stop this initiative, right? Because this was a threat, and it would have really killed a lot of business for them. So as a result, it went into a back burner for a couple of decades, right? And that now we've got the electric car happening currently in a commercial sense, right? But it took a very long time, and it also depends on the politics of the country, the politics, who is favoring and who is not favoring. So, for example, if you look at it, there's a lot of countries that give subsidies for renewable energy, because still it's a very expensive activity, expensive energy source, right? So, but the question is, how are we going to make it cost effective so that it is available at a very low price to anyone, right? Now, this is a big question. Anyone who's done some research on this side who would want to have a discussion with me? Have you guys done any research on this?
There is no particular research on my
Right.
side, but there was one investment that we did, and the company, what they were doing was in India, that they were creating a different set of financing from the banks,
Yes. A special
from
purpose vehicle?
the region. Not exactly special purpose vehicle, but like in India, there is a Bank of India which have
Right.
2,500 branches across India. Out of these 2,500 branches, around 1,000 branches are in the rural areas. So what this company used to do is they used to distribute solar equipments like solar lanterns, solar home system, solar water purifiers, etc. By making it by getting it financed from these regional rural banks or MFIs in rural areas. So they will meet the CEO of these banks. They will create a separate set of financing option in which the product will be set in the warehouse of the company, but it will be coming in the brochure of the bank that, hey, if someone wants to buy solar home system, we give the interest, we give the financing for the entire solar home system at say 5% interest rate. So bank gets a new stream of revenues by getting this product financed to these rural people. This company would take a margin in the between, and that's how the financing happened. The rural people used to get like say 10,000 INR product in 20 installments, 24 installments, stuff like that.
Right. So what you're talking about is a strategic partnership that this the seller got into with a financier, right, and made it available to your consumers, which is also a very good thing. But in this our manufacturing space, and especially these wind turbines, right, is a very expensive thing. Very, very expensive. And I want to find out, as management accountants, right, senior management accountants, now you're into if our AEN is thinking of partnering with a manufacturing company, you know it's a very expensive activity, this manufacturing business. What are some of the areas that you will look into? What are some of the areas that you will look into to explore? Now you need to think, okay, my focus should be on reducing cost. What would you be doing? Any ideas?
What about flexibility?
So Jai, what do you mean flexibility?
Like if we create an alliance with one of the manufacturers, we would lose our flexibility to negotiate with other suppliers for their wind turbines, because everyone would produce a different wind turbine.
Yes.
And we would lose our flexibility if we come into alliance with one of them.
Yes, very good very good observation, because in this case, if I just have only if I'm only purchasing from one source, right, then I'll have there is restrictions, right? I'm restricted. But let us assume that I do not have restrictions. I have an alliance with these people, right? I'm working with them. It does not mean I have to only purchase from them, right? From our joint venture company, we don't only have to purchase from them, we can purchase from all the others as well. The question is, as a management accountant, how would you look at reducing the costs? What are some of the things that you would be doing?
Well, if we have entered into a joint venture, we could make a strategic value chain analysis, and collaborate with our supplier to find out what are his areas of operations where we can benefit by jointly collaborating, because I think they do very good in design engineering of the wind turbines, and by speaking to the suppliers and integrating it through electronic data interchange,
Yes.
EDI, we can produce better wind turbines with less errors and lesser costs. So that could be one area where collaboration would work.
Yes, very good answer, because you're looking at that value chain. So, a couple of things, guys, what Jai mentioned very nicely, and how he integrated that into his answer is mentioning the mentioning the value chain, and how you go through that value chain, look at producing a product which you get a better output, right, and the reduction in cost of the manufacturing of it, as well as the whole process of the value chain, right. Basically what we're trying to do is take out the non-value adding activities, right, and increase our margins. That's where we're trying to look at. ABC costing is also something that we can look at, and here we are saying, well, how can I what are the non-value added activities that we can eliminate, right? Or if some activity is done in a very expensive part of the world, well, can I get it done by somewhere else, right? That's another view that we can have. Yeah. Now let us go to the next. Yes, go on.
No, I mean, I was just asking if there could be an opportunity with the grants and the technical assistance money. Lot of organizations like US Aid, Aus Aid, UK Aid, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundations, they provide a lot of free money to support such projects wherein the renewable energy takes over and contributes to the society. In Cambodia, there is a 30 million grant from Australian aid government, wherein if someone uses solar energy equipments, they will provide the financing up to 30 million for 10 different projects.
Right.
So I mean, those could be the areas where such options can be explored, and we can use free financing to either create new technology or explore new geographies, or use those money in our existing projects.
Correct, correct, Nikhil. But the thing is, I'm looking at a sustainable model where I can provide the energy to people at a very low cost. How can that be done, right? On an ongoing basis, my whole cost needs to come down. So I'm looking at a situation where I'm going to be grant free, all this funding free. I need to look at that situation, because at any given time, if this funding freezes, that's a huge risk, and they have stated in our risk register as well, this funding aspect of it, right? So as long as there's funding, you can go on, there's subsidies, you can go on, but as soon as this is taken out of you, you kind of collapse and you can't move on, right? So that's not an ideal position that we should be in. Any other comments? Now, this particular company, Sun Edison, was a great company. Started off very well, but got into a lot of problems, right? They at one point they had a market capitalization of 10 billion with a $32 share price, but then it went into 34 cents, right? It went into bankruptcy and faced a lot of issues, obviously. But why did this happen? It happened because of growing too fast too soon, and also because the company was so large and they couldn't make decisions and they couldn't be agile, right? So why is agility this important to us? Why is it important? Any views? Nikhil, what about you? Okay, Jai, go on.
The environment is constantly changing, and the technology that this company would have possessed would have been outdated in 1 or 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to prevent being static, or prevent being what do you say, caught out by other rivals. It, I think, overexpanded into other sectors, but it didn't take into account the risk. They didn't take calculated risks while going into the other sectors. So the agility has to be calculated, that if we go into a particular sector, what is the growth prospects there? Can we survive? Is our competence or our co-competence stretchable? Can we stretch our resources to the other side as well? If we can't stretch, then all our investment will go down the drain, because no one would buy our products if it's outdated. Like in AAN's case,
Yes.
Mr. Kumar pointed out 15 million of software has gone. It's outdated.
Yes.
So the same thing would be applicable here.
Yes. Exactly. Any other comments?
I mean, it is also, it can happen when a company has seen the forecasted the expected market growth rate very fast, which could be real, but after 5 years. So if those miscalculations about the market and the industry is done by the economist, by the company management, then also these circumstances might occur. Just to relate with an example, in 2011, the carbon credit market was like, when each share of carbon credit was trailing around $65 carbon credit, it came down to $3 or $4 for each carbon credit. So market collapses when there is no buyer and there are more sellers. Probably the technology in the solar few years ago was very expensive. That's why the market pick up as much as everyone was expecting. So these could be the prediction of the market in a wrong sense could be one of the major reasons also for such kind of a disaster.
Yeah. So good observations. Where, I mean, if you're operating in a market, in an industry that is cutting edge and is experiencing changes constantly, and you have to be on top of these changes all the time, but you have a structure which is very not agile, very strict, and they're not able to move that fast. So by the time they make the changes, things have happened and you've moved on. So a classic example is Nokia and Apple, right? So Nokia, when Apple was entering into the market with the iPhone, Nokia engineers had mentioned to the senior management of the company, saying, we need some money to look into this particular phone that these guys have. We need to analyze it, dissect it. And the response was, so what's the market share that Apple has, right? Because Nokia had like 90+% of the market share, but see what happened, right? So arrogance doesn't take you anywhere. Plus, you are quite complacent if you're the kind of the leader and you don't move fast enough. So others will come and just take over you, right? You can see that with companies like Airbnb, who are extremely agile, got into the market, and the hotels are like, what happened to me suddenly, right? Because now Airbnb is a serious threat to hotels, because suddenly they have got a huge inventory. And the plus point is they don't own any of those assets, right? So for them, that part is not there. Okay, so you can see there are different ways companies have done things, and again, by getting into some things too fast, too soon, you are gonna have a problem. So guys, can you hear me well? Because Nikhil is saying he can't hear me.
Yeah, I'm hearing you well, yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. Right. Okay, now with us, for example, reputation is key, right? And I think AEN company has built its reputation pretty well in the Breezeland, and done an extremely good job there, because how do you market yourself? It's important that these guys go into research development. They hold conferences, create awareness amongst everybody, what they do. Plus, because of their reputation, they've done some good work. It's word of mouth, and that gets around as well, right? So they save money for clients, and these get, because of that, they are recommended for others as well. Now when it comes to the politics, this is where things get a little bit murky, because certain politicians, certain parties will support this kind of activity, and the others, not that they don't support, but they are not very supportive of it. They don't give the grants or the backing, etc. So it's important to understand this, because your growth will also depend on the kind of political arena that you're going to be facing. So if you're into full subsidized kind of model, this is where it's going to be very risky. If a new government comes in, their views will be completely different. They might stop certain subsidies or reduce and fund something else. Okay, so this can be a big issue. And as we mentioned, our constant technology changes is something that we have to expect, and as a result, our basic whole industry, our sales, everything can change, right? And you need to be close to the technology. You need to be working with people, the companies who come up with these technologies, right? And because you need to be part of this whole game. If you are away from it, if you're only focusing on your operation, the current operation, that's not going to take you anywhere, right? So you all the time constantly looking for new things, constant questioning. So similar, because of that, your culture of the company also should support this kind of curiosity and the culture. So RES is a real company where they are another project management consulting company, right? They manage to get around the local community people by offering discounted energy bills, right? So they are in a position so the thing is, always when it comes to community, and they are resisting, they're protesting, you need to find out, you need to give them something which is what's in it for me, right? This is a classic change management activity. So you need to take them through that journey and try to convince them and to show them what's in it for them. Any comments here?
Yes, I spoke to a solar energy firm.
Yes.
They provide wind energy as well for one of the, I think they do wind energy in one of the sister concerns. The manager there, he said that in the past they had hired community managers for the local community, so that and they'll establish a fund and they'll do various community related activities, so that they get approval from the community for the wind turbine project. So it's sort of indirect bribery just to get them in the project.
Yeah.
And it's established practice around this wind industry. He was very vocal about saying, there is always NIMBYs around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so it's not bribery as such, but it's a case of managing the stakeholders, right? And one of the things, like for example, companies will do is, it's not only these type of companies, but also, let's say, like one of the things that the commercial bank in Australia, what they did was they sponsored and they did this whole, even to date they have this whole movement, a movement around women in focus, right? They run this whole program, and it's not it is part of the bank, but they run it as a separate unit. Women in Focus, they have lots of activities, and they encourage women who are in business to participate, right? And it's basically giving women the confidence to work, to go into business, etc., and network with each other. So I was speaking to the person who's running it, and then I asked her, well, so is it part of your promotions, you're bringing in the bank's products, etc., because that's what I expected. And she said, no, it's not. It's nothing. We will not promote anything in the bank. However, like you said, Jay, there is an underlying kind of thing going on, because at the end of the day, it's Commonwealth Bank. Everybody knows it's done by Commonwealth Bank, and that awareness is there, right? So in this case where you mentioned this particular company that you spoke to, they are getting more closer with their community.
Yeah, but it's project specific.
Correct.
Like if you're about to get approval for a project in Netherlands,
okay.
So they'll build a community fund over there, or if they're going to Denmark, they'll build a community fund to get the people on board.
Right.
So those kind. So it's very short-termist in nature, so that you get the initial approval, the protests are gone away. But you were saying that we'll try and put them in, we'll try and speak to them,
Yes.
but if they don't agree, we'll just call the police and escort them out, because we're doing this legally, we got the legal approval. So this was his basis. Like we'll through the community manager, we'll try. If they don't listen, there'll be 5 or 10 protesters who are lunatic. We'll call the police and we'll throw them away.
Right. So that's short term in nature, which might bring in that ethical issue to play, right? Because you're only interested in that particular time frame and you get out. But with certain companies, what they do is it's ongoing basis. They will do projects, right? Say, for example, if you look at Bloomberg, they do a lot of projects, right, which is not related to the business that they're in, but they work with the communities. But even in this context, you can work with the communities on a long-term basis, which is something good that they can do, but they have decided not to. So let's say go to the next one. Installations. This is, and I was doing some research again, I found out there's quite a bit of accidents that do happen, right? So HSC is very important. The other aspect is that we are the project managers. We run the whole project. So we have to be extremely cautious in how you deal with this, right? And know what practices are there. Well, have they got proper HSC training or not? Who is working with them, right? So it is an important aspect to consider these installations. Has anybody gone through a situation where they have faced injuries, in the organization? I mean, serious injuries or fatalities. Has anybody gone through that? Right, so this is an area that we need to look into as well. I have a question on this. We will get to it most probably today. Now, supplier power is very much there, because we don't have many people in the world who manufactures these turbines, right? So our supplier power is pretty high. So you need to have very good relationships with the supplier and ensure they give us a quality product as well, right? And for a supplier, AEN is a very good source, a very good person to have, because they have that kind of network within Breezeland, right? And in that way, the supplier can, the manufacturer can get through to that market pretty well. Yeah. And then we look at, when we are trying to grow, should we go into acquisitions or should we just gradually grow within, right? And we all recognize the fact that it does take a long time to gradually grow in particular industries. So it might be because they have been in the wind industry for a long time, they have run that business quite successfully, so they may think of again going into acquisitions now, or merging with other companies. So there might be you need to consider, well, do the cultures match, right? And is it some, since it's a different thing altogether, how do we bring these people into one space and work together, right? So another area that you may need to look at is the due diligence and company valuation. Any questions?
One question. Yes, one question here. Like some of the wind companies, they also produce offshore wind energy. Like I don't know, but if can AEN partner with strategic partnership with oil companies who are exploring in the offshore areas to establish their wind energy farms along with their oil sites?
This is an interesting point, isn't it? It's a very interesting point where the traditional and the renewable coming together. Jai, anything from you? I'd like to hear any comments.
Yeah, it won't fit with their mission and strategy, because these people rile at the fact that there are traditional or fossil fuels still being used, and the very thought of partnering with an oil company will go against their values. So even if they want to exploit the wind energy by using the base of the oil rigs, it would go against their fundamental principles.
Yes, and then if you look at that SAFES model, now that's where you can use the SAFES model and say, well, have we got a strategic fit here, right? And because in one hand we are against it, and the other hand we're saying, oh yeah, we want to do business with them. It's a contradiction, right? It's a contradiction. So it's a good question. This may come in, right? You never know, but it's a very good question, because then if your ethics are, questioned as well, and saying, is it ethical? Because we're facing a dilemma. Should we go ahead with this? Yeah.
I mean, in terms of ethics or using the oil gas, we are not asking or restricting oil companies to stop exploring the oil in those areas. I mean, they're already doing that. What we are saying is that, hey, come on, I mean, there is a wind energy there, no one is using it, let us use that, and you really don't need that space. So for oil companies, it could be a small CSR activity that they are lending their bases to the wind companies, which has basically no hazardous impact on the environment. For us, basically, it is something which no one is utilizing. We are not promoting the oil companies to keep exploring new bases. We're just saying whatever is the base, we use them.
I will give you another example, right? It's somewhat like cigarette companies trying to sponsor sport, right? So that's the kind of dilemma that you face, where you say, well, it's kind of a CSR activity I'm doing, and supporting the community, but is it the right thing? Is a question mark. Yeah. So I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it's a case of the company. It's the company may decide not to, because if you need to be careful with whom you partner, right? Because it's a strategic alliance, a partnership that you're going to have. So and it is a long-term partnership. So you need to be careful with whom you partner, because you are going to be associated with that party. Does that answer the question?
Plus there's the risk of reputation.
Yes, correct. And you can see this.
If you look at BP, British Petroleum, they had this oil rig which burst in the Gulf of Mexico. So if by chance AEN had a wind turbine in that very same base, their reputation would have been shattered.
Yeah. So it is very when you partner with people, companies, you need to be careful with whom you partner. And the same thing goes to celebrities. It's the same identical concept, right? That happens where you partner as a company, you partner with celebrities to promote your product. But if they don't live your values, then your product is going to go down because of their behavior, right? Because your brand and their brand go hand in hand. So it's important both have same values. Yeah. And we spoke more about RES, because RES, what have they done? They have gone into asset management in renewable infrastructure, with the renewable infrastructure group. So this is something that we can do as well, and then go into the asset management part of it, because in your pre-scene it's stated that each of the projects, what they do, are very specific in nature, isn't it? It's not repetitive. So I'm looking at an income stream which is quite standard, because that will be quite helpful for us. So it's like a subscription, right? So I'm looking at an asset management concept where they will be able to give us ongoing income. Now, emergence of China as a global superpower also is an interesting thing for us, because we might be able to partner with them. We have had a lot of experience, exposure in this wind turbine space, so maybe we can provide them consulting, etc., partner with them, have a strategic alliance as well, right? So that ends some things that I've captured on the industry. Right. I may have another set of slides in the next session, but now what I want to do is start off with a question. Okay. Any questions from you guys before we get into that question answer mode? Nikhil, anything from you?
No, not as of now. But just reading an article wherein they were saying that the cheapest offshore wind farm in the world, thanks to the some company partnered with the Shell, and they landed, and it's the cheapest offshore wind farm in the entire world. So that was just interesting for me.
Right. Okay. Anything from you, Swati?
No, not yet.
Okay, so let me get into our questions. One second. And these questions are already there in your Dropbox. Okay, just give me a second. Okay, I'm going to give you guys 7 minutes to come up with an answer structure for this. When you want to go to the next, once you finish reading this, tell me, because it's continued in the next couple of slides as well. And it's in the Dropbox if you want. This is the 5th set of questions. So I'm going to the next page. 1 second. So this is what was there from a extract from the papers, right? And I'll go back to the question.
Yeah, what is the question here? One of the key risks associated with AEN is related to key personnel.
One second. What I want you to do, Maha, is actually do the question by yourself, right? So do the answers by yourself, because that's the only way that you're going to learn. And then we will discuss. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, guys, time's up. So, what do you think? Can we share the answers? Nikhil, how about you? Are you able to share your answer?
Yes, so basically, this question largely relates on the people management skills, and they really want to understand how to mitigate the key personal risk, which
Did
basically
you
in
write
HR code.
down anything?
Yes. So my
Can you
points are the first.
share? Can you share it?
I'm using my mobile on the WebEx.
Okay, fine. It's all right. But I just
Quickly.
want to find out, how did you approach the question? Not the content itself. How did you approach? How many questions are there here?
There are 2 questions.
Okay.
One
So 1 second, dear. 1 second. Anybody else? Have they got 2 questions or 3, 4? Can you put it on your chat? How many questions you've got? So, others, can you just say? Vineet, 1 or 2? Okay. How many questions, Jai? What about you? 3? And Swati? If you can type, yeah. Okay, and others, anyone else who wants to put 3? Yeah. So Nikhil, when you answered your question, this started answering this, did you put the 3 or 2 the 2, you said you mentioned 2. Did you put these 2 headings first?
No.
Right. So that's the first thing, right? That's what we have to get used to. I'm going through kind of a military exercise, right? Because it's very, very important you are able to crack this. Once you get it, that's it. You have got the art of answering. Yeah. So the first thing is, I need you to understand, have you got, how many questions are there? Okay. So you mentioned 2, which is, what are the 2 that you got?
So one was the risk of key personnel, and I basically mixed the expansion plan under the negotiation with Denmark and China into it, which I think is a separate question. And the third question is the other risk that AN may face.
So you put in the risk and the expansion, right? You put them together, is it?
Yeah, actually I put it together.
Right.
Ideally it should.
Yeah, the reason is then it gives the examiner the ease to mark your questions, right? To mark your answer properly. He can see then, right, the person has identified the 3 questions here and now they've started answering. Otherwise, you're going through, you have put it in that particular answer 1 point and he has to go and find that, dig that out for himself, right? So that is number 1. Number 2, what did you do?
After that, I started jotting down the points. That firstly, if it is an HR question, then what is this point 1? Then secondly, thirdly, fourth, and trying to create a justification for an argument, and then trying to have a pre-seen context linked to it, and making a like spider web like within to argument my point.
Okay.
Convincing the examiner.
Right. Okay. Any particular models you used?
No, I've not thought about the models.
Any now we have got 4 competencies. Any particular competencies you're trying to use here?
One is the people skill.
Yes.
Then there is a technical skill, and the business skill, you can say it's more of a business skill.
What technical or business? So what is a business skill that you're trying to apply?
Business skills in terms of expansion plan.
Okay. So I want to open it up to anyone else. Have you used any models in this case? Joy, anything from you? Okay. Tara model, yeah. So I'm looking at an operation risk here as well, right? Because I'm seeing my people are not going to be there. So let me see the number of questions that are here, right? Now they're saying, can you please provide me with how best to mitigate this risk? That is a key personnel risk, right? Them leaving. Please also consider expansion plan, right? Other risks are the three here. Not having the qualified personnel. Now, the model that can be used is a TARA model, and also look at there is another in your CIMA structure have given different types of risks, strategic risks, operational risks, and so on. So one of them as well you can use, and you can actually mention this is an operational risks that you will face immediately, but however going forward it could turn out to be a strategic risk as well, right, if this goes on for a long time. Now that's one part of it. Nikhil, does that make sense to you, to your answer?
Yes.
Right. Thereafter, what did you write? Then I'm particularly interested in what are some of the other risks. What did you mention there?
I didn't attempt that part, honestly.
Right. Anyone else who's attempted that? Jake, anything from you?
Yeah, there's only one risk I thought of, that it would cripple AEN's business if it doesn't have the qualified personnel, because the human resource is the best asset for AEN.
Right.
Without them, they can't consult on their clients, on the projects, and they'll be crippled.
Right. Okay. I'm not going to give you an answer to this one, because your next question will give you the answer, right? So just I would like someone, Swati, what do you think? Now Nikhil gave an answer. Can you critique that answer, please? And by the way, I'm asking, sorry guys, I'm asking people to do it, someone to give their answer and another person to critique is twofold, because I'm not trying to put you on the spot. It's because I want someone to say why the person thinks it's a good answer, or no, in these are the areas the answer could have been improved, and so on. So don't take it personally. Mainly my focus is that you understand how to write the answer and actually basically crack that exam technique. That's it. Okay, go on.
So in his answer, what the main thing that I found lacking was in this level of exam, we're trying to be one of the management level people. So we're a project manager, and having a simplistic answer would not really help us get through the exam. So Nikhil's answer was kind of simplistic, and his models also, he's used very few models. It was a very straightforward answer to a very simple question, but in this level we're trying to be we're giving suggestions to the board, so we would try to use models and we would try to answer at a strategic level. Moreover, one more thing that I found lacking was as you pointed out, he found out two questions, whereas it is it is divided into three parts, so we needed to answer all the three parts.
Yes.
That is what I found lacking in his answer.
Yeah.
A few models that I myself can point out in this is one would be the Mendelow's matrix, because we're talking about the key personnel.
Yes.
Then if you're going to Denmark and China, we can also see the Porter's 5 forces. We need to see our factor conditions, the factor conditions. We can see our the labor cost in Denmark or China, whether we can get proper expertise there.
Correct.
Things like that. So we can use our 5 forces if we're talking about the key personnel. And also in the third part, we can see what are the risks. We can use the TARA model. We can use our human resources points that we learned in our E2 and E1, things like morale and how to keep the motivation levels high. So things like that we can use in the third part. So there are plenty number of models that we can use within the answer, and I think using them in the correct way also would help improve our answer and make it look like we are actually talking to the board and we're
Yes.
giving them suggestions, you know.
That is very important, and what Swati said is so true, because it is actually a very straightforward question, and you'll be lured to kind of give a very simplistic answer, because you may think, oh, you know what, this is very easy, right? And this is what the trap that you should not fall into, because they are looking for a strategic viewpoint from a very senior manager, right? You're addressing the board, so the question might look very simplistic, but when you're answering, you justify, these are the questions asked, these are the because to your answer you're justifying as well, using the theoretical side of it and bringing it in, right? That'll give you the depth and breadth to your answer. This is what the examiner is looking for, right? So the key risk associated with AN related key person, if some, like one of our key founder members, the person leaves, what is it? Have we got succession planning in place, right? So it needs to get answered in a very structured fashion. And Swati also mentioned going into Denmark, China, do we have the qualified personnel? Does it mean, we are trying to expand, maybe Denmark is a known country with, they do have very qualified people, because they have been investing in this renewable energy for a long time, they've been working in this space, so you may have the qualified engineers, etc., but China may not have, right? So does it mean that we'll have to bring in certain people from outside? We need to plan for that. Cheap labor is not the most important, not the most important thing here, because we need to get the correct people. If we do not get the correct people, the risks that the company will face are enormous, right? It can even lose operating licenses if they don't have the proper people. Yeah. Now let us any other questions before I go into the next question? So I would suggest that you do some proper answers, the 60-minute answers, and then send it over to us as well. I have had, both Kuma and I had few students sending their answers, not all. So we would encourage you to send, okay? And for the people who've sent answers, we're going to respond to you very quickly. Now, I want to go to my next question, which is not a very happy question actually, but it is something that did happen in my organization that I worked, and I want to find out how you will respond to this situation. I will go to the next page now. And now I will give you 7 minutes. Okay guys, time's up. What do you think? So Jay, you want to share your screen with us?
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
So as for Mendelow's matrix, there are 4-5 key stakeholders. One would be the directors. They would need to be informed immediately of what safety lapses were on our parts to identify the loopholes in the internal control, because we are project managers, so we would be supervising the site. So we need to identify the project managers responsible who didn't have a proper supervision over the project or the workers areas, because there would be other managers in under the project manager. So we need to exactly pinpoint responsibility and hold them accountable for lapse. Even though the subcontractors workers died, we have to be responsible for their safety. Then we would go to the press and we'll accept responsibility for the deaths. We'll announce that we are going to penalize a contractor for not adhering to safety norms. Maybe there was a fault on their part which was out of our control. They didn't follow the rules or something, but we still have to accept responsibility for it. Otherwise,
So the
the
first,
press will penalize
sorry,
us.
Jay. So I just want to find out who are the key stakeholders that you will come up with? Subcontractors.
The contractors are the, what do you say? They're not the key stakeholder because
So who are your key
they don't have
stakeholders?
such high.
Who are the key stakeholders?
The press for me.
The press. Who else?
The press and the directors, and then we'll have to speak to the contractor individually, and we have to keep him informed of what we're going to do to him. So because he doesn't have that much high power to with us. But the third one is the employees. The employees are also key players, and we need to tell them that but that they have high power. So we need to tell that we are going to announce health and safety programs, and we're going to reinforce the safety policy in our company, and nothing beats safety for us.
Right.
So these three are the key ones, and contractor is secondary because we might penalize them or we'll cancel them completely, and we might announce a safety audit across all the contractors and subcontractors.
Okay, fine. So I just want to hear from anyone else. Nikhil, what about you?
Hello?
Yeah, Jai. So thanks. I want to see who are the key people that you highlighted. So you highlighted some, but we'll get to it because I want to see the others.
I'm sorry, your voice cut a minute back. I didn't hear anything you said.
So what I said was I just wanted to see who are the key stakeholders that you had stated, right? And I want to go to some of the others as well and see what they have stated in their answer. So Nikhil, you want to share your screen with us? Or you can say what, I think you can't share the screen, but you can talk to us, isn't it? Nikhil, can you hear me? Okay, Maha, you wanna, okay, fine, go ahead. So who are the key stakeholders that you have stated? Maha, I can't hear you. Hi Maha, I can't hear you. Can Swati present then, please? Swati?
Yeah, sure. Just a minute.
Okay, so what I want to find out is if you can put in the chat box the number of questions that are there, right? Each one of you, while Swati goes through her presentation.
Just a second, yeah, it's loading.
Yeah, sure.
Can you guys see the screen?
No, it's not come through as yet. It's just a gray screen right now.
Okay, sure. Just a minute. Now?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, wait. So, I have put up 2 to 3 people. So, it's the first one is media. Then there's the human rights and the families. So, there's the human rights organizations and the families of the deceased. I noticed that these 2 or 3 would be the stakeholders that would directly come up as a result of the loss of personnel. Handling these two, so for handling the media, what we would do would directly we would go for setting up media teams, which would be under the supervision of the public relations department, and then we can either give up a story, we can set up a story for them, for all of them to give up to the media. We can also try telling our other personnel or other employees to stay away from the media so that there are no gossips being created. We can also show that the loss was not directly our fault, and also that the subcontractor or the contractor subcontractor did not pay attention to the safety, because overseeing the safety is a part of our work, but that making sure that they are being safe or they are taking the proper measures is the work of the supervisor, who actually comes under the contractor subcontractor the role or the jurisdiction of work. So it's not directly our fault, and we can also just for the sake of bringing up the image, we can also try to make sure that we take an action into this, or we can tell the media that we are going to take action against the contractor subcontractor. Also, we can try bringing up our past data of the safety records and trying to show that we can try to show them that we have been safe in all our projects, and we are very safety focused. That is how we can handle our media. Then we have the human rights and the family, the human rights association and the families to take care of. So first of all, we can show our solidarity with the family. So that is going into the people perspective, and we can also try to offer the family some financial support because they have probably lost their breadwinner. We can give them a little financial support. Other measures would include, organizing a charity or funding a movement for people who have lost their families, or they've lost their breadwinners, or they've lost key people in their family. We can try getting a charity organized, and then we can try to fund them through that if we do not have the cash, because we are also a cash tied company and we cannot bring on that much cash to fund them continuously. So probably organizing a charity to fund them would be a better option. So I think this is what I found out.
Okay, right. So anyone else who wants to go ahead and talk to this before I start giving my response? Any other person? Maha, how about you? Because I know you wanted to present, but you couldn't present. I didn't hear you. Are you able to talk now, Maha?
In the Swati's discussion, The insurance point has not been covered, because not only the employees, generally in the site, the contractors and subcontractors, everyone is covered through this insurance.
Yeah.
And then the necessary authorities have been notified.
Yeah.
And we can also say that the necessary safety equipments and the gears were available, and the HSC engineer is around the site and then monitoring the each and every area through his subordinates, and the safety standards around the site is always adhered to. And then there is no such previous serious incidents have been reported earlier in the past 5 years. And in spite of this, the incident has happened because of the negligence of the contract employee. Nevertheless, the insurance policy is in place for all the workforce engaged in the project, and the necessary authorities have been informed, and the first information report is submitted. So that is what is there in my mind.
Okay, fine. Right. Okay, anyone else? So the question is, in this case, a serious incident has happened, and your manager is asking, I would like to get an independent view from you on how we should manage stakeholders and communication in this situation, right? Who are the stakeholders and the type of communication, right? That's what it is. And you are actually indirectly reporting to the CEO, because the CEO is going to get this information, right? So when you talk about your stakeholders, when something happens, one of the first people that will get informed is the family, right? And it is not, remember these things, because it's not a mere phone call. Somebody will have to go personally to the home of the person next of kin to inform this tragic incident, right? So the communication, the type of communication is a personal communication that needs to go, right? That's the first thing. Now the next one would be media has got to know this, but before that you try to communicate with the employees before the media, you release anything to media, right? So in our organization where I worked, when this thing happened, it was one person was from the UK and the other person was from Australia. So the families were informed, of course, and then we were informed of this tragic story by our MD. So there are different managing directors in this particular company. They all informed the employees personally, right? Personally. So, and then you at the same time need to handle the media as well as the social media. Now we have forgotten the social media aspect, because social media is something that needs to get, we need to control the social media. Instead of someone else putting it out there, we can put in this sad news, something's happened. The third thing is, on communicating to the employees, generally it is face-to-face communication, right? And it was a very emotional thing for the MD of our company. He was in tears. It was shocking. This guy, somebody that we know otherwise, and we saw his emotional side displayed at that point, because he was in tears, and he was, when he mentioned this, he couldn't speak. So you can feel how the senior managers feel as well, and it was a genuine thing. Not any one of us knew these people personally, but you feel for the person and the families, right? And immediately what they also said was set up a charity, and said if people want to donate, this is what they're going to be. This is a charity. This is how you have to donate. And at the same time, they also mentioned, like Swati mentioned to us, you shouldn't reach out to the media, because it is all the communication will go through one channel, social media as well as press. So that's a way of controlling and saying the same thing. Now at this point in time, you don't know what has happened. We cannot jump into conclusions. right? So it should always be that it is under investigation, and the root cause analysis will be carried out and will be published, and you have to be transparent. The best advice at this point is to be very, very transparent and be very open in what our findings are. Now, there was another comment there saying, well, it's the contractor's fault, it's not our fault. Sorry, that doesn't happen. Okay, that's an ethical issue, because you are the project manager, right? You're managing the whole project, and you are a big company. AEN is a big company, and they are very well known in the field, so they take responsibility. Okay, it is your responsibility to have checked that you have people who have gone through the proper HSC certification, etc. Now, in my company in Australia, what they did was they couldn't care less if you are from the contractors person, you're from one of our own employees. What they said was, as long as you're going to be working in one of our projects, you have to do the HSC certification. There is no negotiation here, right? So, and it was a very expensive course as well. So they used to do this on an ongoing basis. It's something similar to that of the training that the pilots go through or the cabin crew go through on an ongoing basis. They have training. So it was the same thing, right? They have to go through this on a regular basis, right? And there is not one training but many trainings depending on the type of work you do. So this is something that has to be there. So be careful, guys. You cannot move away from that responsibility. The fault can be, we don't know at this point, but you are the bigger player here, so you take it on. It was the same thing in the company that I worked, because actually we were doing a contract, right? We were actually doing a project management. Other people were coming in. It was a subcontractor's employee, right? That's how it was, right? However, we had to answer the press because we were the bigger player in this whole thing, right? So we take on the responsibility. Hence, when we partner with anybody, right, now you can see we take responsibility for that partnership. So you need to ensure your other party is also equally responsible for their actions and the training of the personnel, right? And now I'm going to link this to your question that I gave you, the second question. You see, there was a thing about personnel who are not qualified. Okay, if you have people who are not qualified working with you, right, the chances of accidents happening are very high. Okay, so I think Jake only mentioned one when I asked the risk, right? You just mentioned one, but you can see now it could be a disaster, right? So we need to have people qualified people. We need to take on qualified people who are trained as well, right? We cannot take people who are not qualified because the risks are very high. Yeah. Any comments or any observations?
What about my answer? Can you critique it?
Yeah, so let's see it again.
Yeah, so I think directors was wrong. I just simply put it.
Yeah.
Then press, contractors, and
so the
employees.
first thing in priority, I would say the family, right? So the family comes first, right? The employees immediately, because rumors fly, right? So the people and the employees also fall into two categories actually. The ones who are immediately involved in this incident, right? They were there when it happened, right? And also people who are known to these people, the two people who passed away, and the rest of the employees, because those people need to get informed immediately, and there is a grievance procedure and process that needs to be, they need to be handled separately, because it's a shock, right? We don't know how they passed away as well, so it's a huge shock for you to get kind of at least to come to normalcy. There is a process that you have to go through, so that needs to be handled, right? And the next is our own employees in the organization, and then of course the press gets to know, right? Or we inform the press. It can be done sorry, in a proactive fashion rather than reactive fashion when the press gets to know afterwards, right? So proactively we can then manage the communication very well. If we initiate and say, right, this incident has happened, this is what took place, this is the issue, this is how we are dealing with it, we don't know the root cause currently, it's under investigation, we have gone through our process. Generally is the type of communication that you need to provide to the press is what is your current process when it comes to HSC, right? So this is our process, we have followed it, however we need to find out what happened in this situation, right? Because we don't know. Now all this is actually, now apart in the question it's not asked, however we should, if there is another question twisted in a different way, right, is we need to have all these activities mapped out in the case of something happening. In the event of something happening, we should be able to immediately go on doing these activities. It is like clockwork, it happens, right? Because if we don't know the sequence, if we don't know how we should be doing, it is chaos, right? It's a chaotic situation and it will get blown out of proportion completely, and our reputation, which took us so long to build, will just come crashing down, right? One of the things with Australia is they are very, very good as a country when it comes to preempting things and then addressing things. Yes, Jai?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about this mapping for the activities. How does it help? Because after the incident has occurred.
What do you mean mapping these activities?
You were talking about mapping the activities,
yes, what
and
I meant
it acting
was,
like clockwork.
Yes, what I meant was this. That's why I said, if the question was answered, asked in a different way, right? This is after the incident. Yeah, this is after the incident. But the question could be, well, how could we manage, disaster recovery, disasters? How should we, in a scenario like, in this, how should we manage that? The business continuity plan and the disasters, if we are to face something, how should we manage it? How should the communication be? Right? If a question like that comes through, then these things should have been planned beforehand, right? It's not something that we go on thinking about when the incident has happened, right? It should be thought of. And generally, this is somewhat like the fire drills, right? The fire drills are done, and we are done n number of times for us to be familiar with what should we do if something happens, right? And so similarly, we do practice a lot of disaster when there is a disaster recovery plan is there, but you need to simulate that activity as well, right? Because it's one thing to have the plan, you've not simulated, and when you actually something does happen and you can't move your data, right, from one data center to the other. That too we had an experience, right, in one of the other companies I worked, where they have not simulated it. Right?
Okay.
So it's not good enough just to have a plan. You need to act on it to see whether everybody is prepared. Any other questions? No?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to know what are the how many questions were there in this question then, and what were the parts?
So if I go back, how should we manage the stakeholders, the how, and the communication in this situation, right? How should we manage the so you identify the stakeholders and the communication in this. So what communication would you provide in this situation? And how you will communicate as well. You see, the how is there because that's important in this situation. If you say even the press, it has to be face-to-face communication. When a serious incident happens, mostly you go face-to-face.
Right, yep.
Yeah, and always it is senior managers of the company, like the board comes together, and the CEO, the managing directors, all these guys, people come together to address the employees if it's spread all over the place, like as it was in our case. We were spread all over Australia, so we had MDs in different parts of the states, so all of them addressed the employees, right, face to face. So there is no email. Email follows, but first it is face to face. Any other questions before we close for today? So any questions around, I know Kumar has been, so somebody's asked a question, who are the stakeholders? I think, who are the stakeholders? We mentioned, Prabin, there is mainly the family, the employees, the press, the community, right? So these are some of the key stakeholders, but also the insurance, because they will come in to play a big role, and the regulatory authorities as well, right? So there are some key stakeholders who will have to be addressed, and each one of them will look at this incident in a different lens, right? So you need to be aware what each one of them are looking for, and address each one of their questions, because it's not the same thing. Yeah. So with Kumar's sessions, I think you have focused a lot on investments, right, and financing aspects of it. Any key learnings from there, Jai, that you've come across?
Just the ways to fund. Not much. I think the key point was that software, which I found about. No, not much.
Okay. What about you, Swati? Anything from you?
Yeah, I think he went into great details for the dividend valuation, as in the company valuation and the dividend policies, and
yes,
how do you value shares, what if the key personnel leaves, and
yes,
different aspects of purchasing dividends, how do you get funds, and so many different things that he taught through his questions. And I found it really insightful, because we don't go much details into the financial aspects, and sometimes when the whole paper comes on that, it was actually really helpful, because I myself don't like that side, and the way he taught, I
Yes.
think I quite understood it well.
Right.
So
Yeah, and that's the trick, isn't it? When one variant can be on finance side of it, and all
exactly.
three questions are on it, so there's no escape at that point.
Right, that's what.
Yeah, yeah,
So I think going into details about that did really help, because now that any question of that sort comes, we know what points we can write.
correct.
So
Yeah, yeah, because there is, they could hold on to dividends, they could try various things in order to get the finance, isn't it? Because and this type of business, it's big money that they require. It's not small money in order to start off something strategic.
right. Moreover, in the previous exams, I don't think they've gone into IPO or anything like that, because the company was already listed.
List in this
And this
case,
company does
yeah,
not. Yeah, it's not. So there
correct.
are chances that there might be a financial exam. There might
Yes,
be a variant with F3 in it.
yes.
So going into details was definitely kind of helpful.
Yeah, and also in the sense now, because when you're preparing for an IPO, another thing is their corporate governance, they might not be following the typical corporate governance of a listed company. However, this is one of the key areas when it goes in, when you're seeking
Listing,
funding, shares. So they have to be prepared for that corporate governance aspect of it, and also they will not have the reporting capabilities within the company so far, the compliances, etc.,
Exactly, yeah.
etc., which they will have to adhere to as soon as they go into a listing, right? So again, when
So
it comes,
there's almost, there's a very high chance of a variant coming on that, because they've given a governance lack, they've given no listing. So all these things can definitely have some reason behind it. So they might put up a variant on that.
correct, yeah. So you're prepared for that then, because Kumar's covered that. Anything else, Maha? Anything from you?
Yeah, the Mark II, Mr. Kumar has covered well, like
Right.
the concept of private equity, and then now the venture capital, and Joshua is trying to divert the. And Isabel is trying to sell 20% of her shares, and now Joshua. Yeah, all that is really good. The questions seems to be very simple,
Yes.
but when he has taken us through these answers, it was so tricky, really.
Correct. And the structuring becomes very important. On the onset, it looks pretty simple, but not really, isn't it? It's not all that easy.
This is the first time in the pre-scene there is management accounting. It was not the case earlier. So again, I think this is the most important to concentrate on the financial part.
And the examiner has in the past has basically mentioned that he or she has not been happy with the way students have answered the finance part. So be careful, because this is something that I don't know which variant it may come in one of the variants, because like Swati mentioned, this is not a listed company, so a lot of opportunities are there for you to for them to ask you questions. Well, the company is now listed, and they'll come up with that kind of thing, or they come up with a scenario saying one question might be they are going in for the listing, next one would be something on, well, they have listed now, whatever, so purely on finance part of it might be there. So that's going to be quite an interesting one, very different to what was there, what have they have asked before. Any others?
Yep, that's it for the day.
Right.
You mean to say in one variant all the questions will be from F3?
It can happen. So generally, one second, I'll just put you on hold, mute, because there's a lot of background noise. So generally what happens is that one question follows the other, right? The first question will set the tone, and it will follow for the second and the third, right? So if you look at your past papers as well, this is how it has been set. So one variant can be on this, or if they are quite excited about this topic, they might have even two variants on the same kind of, on the same lines. Who knows? Okay, then we will end for today. Have a good evening and keep on sending your answers.